Hello world, how are you this fine evening? Hopefully everything is good on your side of the world, wherever you are at the moment. Hi, my name is Kathleen, and for those of you who are fairly new here, or fairly new I guess would qualify, my name is Kathleen. I know you're used to seeing Marianne here doing this lovely thing. However, she is not able to be here tonight, so I am stepping in. Usually I'm doing the behind the scenes thing, which is it's easier to focus on one side or the other of this operation, but, you know, sometimes life happens and you need to step up. So tonight I'm going to be doing everything. I'm running the show and I am doing the show. So please, in advance, I ask your forgiveness for any flubs tonight. It's a little harder to do things all by yourself, but I've done it before. I will get through this one way or another. I am going to need to just check around, make sure everything is okay. So please use this opportunity to invite some friends. Share this on your own page or across Twitter or wherever you like to share things. Because, you know, let's make it a party, right? It's a Christmas Day show, so we have done a show every single week this year, and we were not about to miss this one. I know Christmas would have given us a really good excuse to not do it, but we've made it through the year. We've done 51. I was not going to mess up on 52. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk tonight about checklists. Many industries rely on checklists to get the job done for safety, for all kinds of good reasons. But I am always surprised when I find out that BAs don't consider that to be a part of their toolkit. So we're going to talk about why that you should at least consider adding those to your lists. Okay, so I have 2 minutes. Let me just do a quick check. Please go and invite friends, family, neighbors, whoever you like. You can point them there. If you go to thebazone.com/watch, you can watch the show there. If you don't want them to watch with you wherever you are, that's fine. No problems, no judgments. All right, let's see here. So I just want to make sure everything is running. We have sound. Sound is a good thing to have for a video show. Ooh, did you hear that? That was a strange sound outside. Oh well. If I don't hear anybody screaming, I'm assuming everything's okay. All right, and we're up here, so that's good. And let me just check over on Periscope. And for some reason, Periscope's not logged in. Okay, let me just try that and see if I can get that to come up here, because I do want to get everybody's comments tonight. And it's logging me into the wrong account. See, there's always something. There's always something that goes wrong. All right, so let me try this real quick. It's always a little weird that I can't just log in there, but they've got their reasons. I'm sure they have their reasons that force me to have to go and log in 2 places in order to get logged in one. For those of you who are not familiar, if you're on Periscope, the way that you log in is through Twitter. So that's what I'm having to do now. The thing is, sometimes it takes a couple of tries before it actually catches. But we will give it a shot, right? Because we want to include our Periscope friends in this show. We want to make sure that we can get their comments and their thoughts. All right, we're almost there, and it's 8 o'clock, so we're not too far behind. Considering I'm doing this solo, I'm going to give myself a pass. All right, let's see here. We've got this, and yes, we are live. So you folks over on Periscope, so we are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Periscope. So wherever you are, feel free to stop in, say hi, let me know where you're from. If you're new here, you know, let us know. Or just, you know, chat, that's fine too. Or if you have any ideas or points of view around checklists, let us know. Let me know. Well, Mara watched this afterwards. And if you are watching this on the replay, never fear. You can go ahead, throw your comments in everywhere except Periscope. Periscope, you can't do that after the fact. But Periscope can do it here. If you have a comment and you're watching on a replay and you're not on YouTube or Facebook, or you just don't like to leave comments there, you can go to the website, thebazone.com. And there's a comment form there, or you can reach out to us on Twitter. A lot of people like to do that. And over on Twitter, we are the BA Zone. See how easy that is? So feel free. And we do go and we check constantly to make sure that we are catching anybody who's catching the replays, because we know it's a very popular way for people to watch. Not everybody can be here on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock, which is fine. All right. So I am going to get the show officially started. Wait a minute. Where's a... Oh, okay. Well, that was a quick notification. So a neighbor just let me know that there was a car accident. But it sounds like it's okay. It's just a fender bender, but that was the noise. See? It's good to have friends in the neighborhood. All right. I am going to get the show officially started, and then we will dive in. Okay. Be back in about, what, 12 seconds? Hang on. Hello and welcome. My name is Kathleen and you are watching the BA Zone Live. For those of you who were expecting to see Mare, she sends her apologies. She couldn't be here tonight. Never fear, you are in capable hands nonetheless. I am running the show and doing the show this evening, so it might be a little bumpy, but we'll have a good time. It's show 52. We have done a show every single week this year. We're very proud of that fact. We are very happy that all of you have come along for the ride. We thank you for your comments and your shares and your follows. It's all good stuff. And we're glad that you're finding this interesting and helpful. As always, we do appreciate if you find it in your hearts to reach out, go right ahead. We're at the BA Zone live. I'm sorry, thebazone.com, and on Twitter at the BA Zone. Okay, and we ask that you let us know, if you are finding this helpful, funny, entertaining, whatever. The likes, the hearts are all appreciated. Comments are always good. We appreciate the follows and the shares. So thank you so much. So tonight we are talking about checklists. Now, checklists are something that are used in a lot of industries, but I'm always surprised. I rely on them a lot. So I'm always surprised when I run into fellow BAs who don't use them as part of their toolkit. So I thought we would talk about that tonight as sort of a nice end of year wrap up, because after all, right? Santa Claus, he's checking his list, he's making it twice. Everybody's already gotten their payoff for being good this year today, but he's already hard at work again tonight, making those lists for next year. And he's not the only one, right? Checklists are a major part of how NASA does things. That's how they ensure that all of those complicated procedures, there's nothing that's getting missed. When there is a problem, they use checklists to go through and identify the problem and figure out what are the best options. Pilots use checklists every single day. It doesn't matter how long they've been flying. Every single pilot gets behind the wheel in the cockpit with their co-pilot, and they run through checklists together to make sure that they're not missing anything. There's a reason for that, right? There's a reason why it's so important that everybody is doing this in all these crucial situations. And let's face it, a lot of us are working in crucial situations too. A lot of us are working on projects that involve, machines, healthcare, financial stuff. There's a lot of, things where we just can't afford to have a slip up. And it's our job as BAs to keep all those pieces running. Now, yes, the project managers are doing their own kind of thing too, but we're the ones doing the nitty gritty. We're the ones making sure that all of the I's are getting dotted and all the T's are getting crossed. And we're the ones that it all falls down on when things get missed. So it's in our best interests to go ahead and make use of any tool that we can find that will help us accomplish our goals, right? And to do it in the most efficient way possible. And that's the key part of any checklist. Checklists help to keep anybody's mission, whether it's our projects or it's sending, people to the moon or Mars. That's how we keep things on track. That's how we account for, deficiencies in the system. That's how we make sure that we are not missing anything that's important. So let's look at it this way. Okay, the best and the brightest minds, in the world, okay, use checklists as a part of their jobs. Okay, like I was saying, pilots, NASA. People on, running the high-speed trains. A lot of people, like cruise ships and, the large ships that carry goods back and forth. They all rely on these kinds of things. A lot of situations, where there's like high-end mechanical work being done. Checklists are a part of the job all the time. Healthcare, checklists are used all the time as a way to make sure that everybody is getting the best possible care, that as few, variables as possible are entered into a situation. Think about it. Like if you're going in for surgery, you want to know that every single thing has been done exactly the way it needs to be done for your own peace of mind. Same thing with getting on a plane. I don't want to get on a plane to find out, that the pilots threw the checklist out the window. No, please. I don't mind leaving late. Go through your checklists. So that's what we're talking about tonight. And if you have any comments, if you have any thoughts on it, please feel free to reach out. I'm just looking away so I can check comments and make sure that everybody is doing okay. Because as a one-person operation here, usually this is what I'm doing behind the scenes, is I'm checking in on these kinds of things. So let me just share this. So if you have questions, comments as we go along, if you have your own way of making sure of, these kinds of things are not these kinds of things are not going wrong, if you have your own checklist, please feel free to share. That's what we're all about here. We're all about helping our fellow BAs get the job done in the most efficient way possible. And any tips that you can share are always a good thing. Adam, hi, how you doing? Good to see you here. Thanks for cruising by. Never know where you're going to pop up tonight. You're on Periscope. That's very cool. All right. So, also, while I've taken a break here anyway, let me remind you that we do have a mailing list, and we are planning some things for that next year. Not going to say yet, but so if you would like to join the mailing list, go to bazone.com/mailing list. The folks on the mailing list always find out first what's going on, what's new, what's coming down the road. And you can rest assured that we are not selling it. We are not doing anything negative with the mailing list. We use it solely to communicate with you. So feel free to come and join the party there. Alrighty, so let's talk a little bit more here. All right, so the first thing that I run into whenever I try to introduce checklists in a new situation is people say, yeah, I already do to-do lists, I'm good. It's like, okay, that's great. To-do lists are a fabulous thing, but they're not the same thing as checklists. So let's cover that, okay? At the core, a to-do list, it tells you something that you have to do, okay? And the checklist tells you how to do things, okay? It's a small, but it's a very critical distinction. And to-do lists are for more for like, one-off kind of things, oh, I got to remember to pick up milk on the way home, that kind of thing. Whereas checklists are really helpful for repetitive things. So, for example, what is the process that the pilots go through while they get ready for takeoff, while they're going through takeoff, while they're going through landing? Okay, these are repetitive things, and, some people say, well, they do that 1,000 times a year. It's like, yes, but they use the checklist every single time because it's in those scenarios that you want to take the cognitive load off of the human brain, right? Because it's got other things to deal with, and put that repetitive stuff down so that they don't have to keep it in their head and keep questioning themselves and, geez, did I forget anything? It's all right there in front of them. They can just go through everything, which allows them to focus on the details of each one of those steps as they're going through them, with the confidence that they haven't forgotten anything, that they're doing things in the right order, and that everything is moving along as it should. So let me see, I just lost track of my stuff, filler. Okay, so basically the reason for a checklist is because it's a great way to help human beings remember and manage complex processes processes. That's enough for us. It does help to make priorities clear. It helps to manage when things are maybe going off the rails. Now, keep in mind that checklists don't have to be just the things that you always do. It can be those conditional things because it's okay to skip something on a checklist as long as you're doing it for the right reasons. You don't want to skip something in a process because you forgot it. You don't want to do something out of order because you forgot the order. But it is okay to have things on a checklist that maybe only happen, 60, 70% of the time. So if you're going through, you're like, okay, for this scenario, yes, it's fine to pass this one and move on to the next one. So it doesn't have to be only the things that you always do every single time. It can be a mix of those things and the conditional things. But again, having it written down, having it in front of you, whether you're doing it on a piece of paper or you're doing it electronically, it is a big help. Now, then some people, after we get past the to-do list issue, start to question, well, what's the difference between a checklist and a process? Again, I understand there are some fine lines between some of these terminologies, but they are very different things. So again, the checklist is telling you how to do something. The process is the steps that you're taking to do that thing from the checklist. So let's talk, for example, actually, I've got a good one here. Let me just bring it up so I can speak to it clearly. So let's talk about something really obvious. Like, I don't want to get into things. I don't want to give example that only BA because I don't want you to think that it only applies to healthcare or financial. Any BA situation, checklists can help. So let's look at it from this point of view. Let's say that you're, working in construction, right? And you do a lot of kitchens. So one of the things that you're going to do a lot is install a new sink and a faucet, right? Maybe you're replacing it, maybe it's a new build, but either way, it's a repetitive task. It's something that you do all the time. But there are crucial things, and there is a very important order to things. So you want to make sure that you're doing it the right way every time, but you don't want to have to remember all that stuff. And you can't count on your brain. It's a human flaw. We all think we're going to remember much more than we do. And if you really stop and think about it, you know that that's the truth. You're like, oh, I'll remember that. And then, you get to the store and you're like, why did I come to the store? What did I forget? Or you get all the way home and you're like, oh, I went to the store for milk and I came home with everything but. that's because we rely too much on our memories, and it's not a good thing. Our brains are wonderful things, but they're doing a lot. And so this is the kind of thing where we can offload and be much more efficient. So let's talk about, okay, so you've got to put in a sink. So you've got to think about all the different things that have to be done. You know, if it's a new or if it's an old. So the first thing is, okay, if it's a new, well, then you've got to measure the new sink and then cut the hole in the sink, in the, what do they call that? The counter. So that you've got a place to put it, right? Or if you're replacing an existing one, maybe you have to measure the new sink that's going in. Is it bigger? Is it smaller? If it's bigger, you need to make the hole bigger. If it's smaller, then you have to figure out a way to make the hole smaller. You need to get it, installed. You've got to get it in there. Sometimes you have to seal it. So that's another thing on your checklist. Once you get it in there, then maybe you're going to install the faucet. Maybe that's the next important piece. And then you're going to install the garbage disposal. And then you're going to attach the sprayer hose thingy. You're going to connect the water supply. You're going to connect the drain. You're going to connect the dishwasher to the drain. Now, not all of these things are going to be a part of every sink install, but even the ones that aren't a part of today's will probably be a part of tomorrow's. And either way, you want to make sure that you look at that important part of your checklist, decide whether or not it applies, and then act accordingly. Now, if we were talking about process, the process would be how to remove the old sink. Maybe you get, some sort of a knife to cut away all the old putty and glue or whatever, and that you have to maybe score around it to break the seal. Maybe there's a tool that you use to help push it from underneath. Maybe you get somebody else to come and help you lift it out. Same thing for cutting the hole. Well, that is a part of the checklist. The process of cutting the hole is going and getting the right tool, taking the measurements, measuring twice, doing the right cut, maybe smoothing the edges, and then verifying that it's the right one. And then you go back to your checklist and you mark that one off. So that's the difference between the checklist and the process. You go to the checklist, you're like, okay, I have to install the faucet. Okay, what kind of faucet does the person want? Do we have all the pieces for it? Let's lay them all out and verify that we've got all the pieces. Let's make sure we've got all the right tools. Okay, now let's take, and I don't know what the pieces are called, but take the part that goes in the hole and you put that in, and then you put the faucet in, and you have to put the little screen in, and you go through all those things. That's the process for that part of the checklist. And when you get to the end of that process, then you go back to your checklist and mark that one off and go to the next one. So that's the difference between to-do list, checklist, and process. Does that make sense to everybody? Hopefully. Let me just check over here, see if anybody's got anything to say here. Weeva Speebs, thanks for joining over in Periscope. We'd love to have you. If you have any thoughts, please feel free to pop them into chat. I am monitoring all the usual places. It's just going to take me an extra second to catch up as I swing back and forth here between production and doing the show. All right, let me move on to the next part. Okay, so just to wrap that up. So a checklist, again, is what you have to do. The process is, or the procedure are the actions taken to complete a particular part of the checklist, right? So it's usually a series of small steps taken to accomplish that goal. Alrighty. Okay, so we're doing good. Let me just remind you, because that's what I do here. This is my backup show thing. If you are new here, or if you have a question or comment, if you're here after the watching this on a replay, you can always reach out to us on the website, which is thebazone.com, or you can catch us on Twitter, which is, again, @thebazone. And you are certainly welcome to join our mailing list, which you can get to by going to thebazone.com/mailing list. That way you'll know everything that's coming down the pike. And there's going to be some exciting stuff next year, so you might want to get on the list. Just a little hint. All right, so let's keep going here. All right, so we talked about the fact that there is a difference between the to-do list, the checklist, and the process, right? And the reason that you want to do this is because, neurologically speaking, our minds are better at remembering and understanding the pathways to end goals rather than the goals themselves. And by offloading that cognitive load, you're allowing your brain to focus on the important details of what you need to do and solving the problems and all that good stuff that comes along with it, while keeping it reassured that nothing is getting missed. Because we all know what it's like when there's something at the back of your brain that's just firing off a little alarm. It's not telling you everything you need to know, but it's just not letting go. This way you don't have to know, because you can go and you keep checking your list and you'll know exactly where you are and what needs to come next. Okay, so let's talk about the advantages about the checklist. We kind of covered a couple of them, but we'll just dive through them in a logical order. So they help us stay organized, and they help to make sure that we're not skipping or omitting any steps. That's a great way to make sure that we're being consistent, that the quality of what we're producing is always at the top notch, and it reduces errors that in some situations, not to overstate it, but can lead to catastrophic errors. So you want to make sure that, you keep that in mind, if nothing else. If nothing else, that should be reason enough to use checklists, although I still run into people who refuse. The other good thing about checklists is it gives us a feeling of satisfaction. When you go through your checklist and you're moving through and you finish your process and you come back and you check something off, there's a positive feedback. It's almost, a lot of people call it gamification. I don't know if I'd go that far with it, but it is satisfying to go through and to check that off and to know that you've nailed it, you've got it, you can solidly move on to the next step. So that's another plus for all of us, because it's those little endorphin releases that we get during the day. I get a lot of them from solving puzzles, but everybody gets them from different things. But this is another good way to get that little boost, which keeps your energy level high as you're moving through. Sorry, more news about the accident. Okay, yeah, nobody's hurt. So it's another good way to keep your energy up, to keep your focus up, to keep your attention level on what it is that you're doing. Hands down, checklists allow you to become faster at what you're doing, more efficient, definitely, and it actually makes it easier to do your job. Because again, you are not having to remember and figure out what needs to be done as you're solving the problems that you're needing to solve for your requirements. You're just being able to move through things, and you can quickly see, what's coming next, and to do things, in an organized manner, and not having to go back and double back all the time because, oh, wait, you skipped something. Oh, wait, you forgot something. You don't have that problem when you're using checklists. So your productivity goes through the roof when you start to use checklists. As I mentioned before, it definitely helps your brain master the reoccurring processes, right? Because your brain can focus on the creative work that you need to do. And what we do is highly creative. Not everybody appreciates that fact, but it's very true. The problem solving that we're doing is definitely creative work. And in order for your brain to function at its highest level creatively, you need to make sure that it's not cluttered with things that could be handled better. Heck, checklists. Another benefit of checklists is they really smooth delegation of tasks. So sometimes as you're going through, maybe somebody on your team is kind of in a holding pattern because they're waiting for something to come to them. And so they've got some time available and they're willing to help. Well, by going through the checklist, you can quickly look at, what still needs to be done. Is there something that can be done in parallel, and assign that to them without, I don't know. Well, maybe we could try. You just go and look at the list. Oh, hey, look, if you've got this much time, could you do this one for me? That would be great. And again, not to overstate it, but they literally can save lives. Okay, what the reason I'm picking, NASA and pilots, because it really does. In hospitals, it has been proven time and time again that having those checklists there, even though they sometimes maybe frustrate people in a hospital emergency situation, by going and spending that fraction of a second to check the checklist, has saved lives time and again, has reduced infections, has reduced errors. These are all good things and good reasons to do the checklist, and to keep going back to your checklists and reworking them and refining them, because like anything else, everything can be better. So you start with a bunch of checklists and then you go back and you evaluate, and maybe you merge two or you break one out into two. It's an ongoing process, but by having them there, it's so much better. This is sort of a historical reference, but during World War II, there was a new set of bombers that came out, and they didn't have a lot of time to train the pilots on them, and unfortunately there were a lot of deaths shortly after takeoff because the processes were so different, and it got to the point where the pilots were refusing to go up in them until they were given checklists that they could go through to make sure that they were doing everything and not missing any steps, and as soon as they did that, the problems went away. So it really is critical. The last one for me, the big one for me as far as a benefit for checklists, is not only how it helps me, but how it helps new team members. It is a great way for new team members to be able to be helpful, efficient, get up to speed much, much faster. If you can give people a bunch of checklists to say, okay, we're going to have you, update this requirements document. Here's the checklist for that. they're not guessing, they're not floundering, they're not maybe trying to apply processes that they've done before that are not going to work in your world because you've given them that map to work off of. Huge, huge benefit for everybody on the team. And it definitely makes the new person feel better because they don't feel new so long. All right, let me check in with the world here. It's Christmas. Why am I doing this? Because this is important. We take our community very seriously here. So yes, it is Christmas here in the U.S. I know in some parts of the world it's over. Some parts of the world it's different holidays. But we are very serious about doing this show, and that's why we are here. Why I am here tonight. Mare is not here, but that's okay. That's why we're a team. We tag team. So that's very funny. Thank you for your concern about my holiday, but it's all good. As it was, my family does their holiday over the weekend anyway because everybody's scattered to the four winds today. So it's all good. No worries. But I do appreciate your concern. That's nice. Okay, sorry. Let me look in the other ones, see if there's any other comments out there. That was funny. You have to keep in mind, to a lot of people, so just for what it's worth, if you're interested in a little behind-the-scenes peek here, doing this show on Tuesday, at 8 o'clock at Eastern Time, 8 p.m., does not lend itself to, a huge live audience, which is totally fine. We picked this time because it's just the time where it's the easiest most often for us, Marianne and I, to get together to do the show. Most people watch the show on replays. So the fact that I'm doing this on Christmas won't have any impact on them because they'll be watching it who knows when. So that's the other reason. It's not a big deal. Plus, it doesn't really take that long. We get them all together. We get all the information together early and get it all prepared. So when it comes to showtime, other than technical issues, it's pretty much a well-oiled machine at this point. So I appreciate it. That's funny. I could ask you the same question. Why are you watching tonight? But I'm glad you're here, right? It's more fun this way. It's more fun. We've got people to hang out with. All right. So, oh, right. I have to do this. See, it's your brain, okay? Again, I'm used to producing the show, so my brain is used to all the things I have to do behind the scenes so that Mare can just do her thing. But now I'm having to do both sides of it, and my brain is going, and that's why I have my checklist here for the show, because I've got what she does, and I've got what I do, and I'm just going through and making sure everything's in sync. This is what we're talking about. So, we would like to invite you and thank you for liking and following and turning on notifications, and for the shares. I will say, the shares mean the world to me especially, because that means that you are truly finding this to be helpful and or entertaining. We're good with either, but hopefully helpful. And the more people that you bring to the party, the more people ask us questions or have ideas for the show, which makes it better for everybody. And that's the wonderful thing about this community is the business analyst community is so open to sharing ideas and being helpful because that's what we do in our job, right? We work with every team across the entire company. And for most of us, that's the fun part of it. But I love the fact that we also bring that to our own community and we share and we help each other. And so thank you all very much for that. I do appreciate that. And I know Mare does too. All right. So let's wrap this up here. So let's talk about good checklists and bad checklists, because like anything else in the world, there's a dark side and a light side, right? Yes, I am binge watching Star Wars. Can't help it. It's a holiday. I get to do what I want. All right, so I'm going to admit. So I've been binge watching Mystery Science Theater 3000, The Gauntlet, because I haven't caught any of it. I'm so embarrassed. It's been out since Thanksgiving. I've also worked in some Doctor Who, and now we're doing Star Wars. So yes. I'm in a Star Wars state of mind. All right, so good checklist. Let's go through the good ones first. Or should we do the bad first? Anybody got any preferences, good or bad first? All right, we'll do good first. We'll start with the positive. Okay, so good checklists are precise, but not too granular. Okay, the process gets granular. The checklist should just be precise. They should be efficient, to the point, and easy in even the most difficult situations, okay? And that gets us back to what I keep coming back to. Okay, yes, Santa Claus is checking his list, making his list and checking it twice. And that's important, right? You want to make sure you're on the right list. You want him to be doing the QA on that to make sure that everybody's landing on the right list. But it's absolutely critical for NASA, okay, for all the people we're sending into space, for pilots with all the lives that they're ferrying around the globe in planes. These are important, but they're also situations where when something goes wrong, it is critical and everything needs to be super clear. Okay, so I'm going to just go down a little sidetrack here. So I've done a lot of tech writing in my time too. And you know, when you're testing your tech writing, especially your processes and your procedures, you always want to make sure that you are presenting things in the right order, because that is the way people are going to do them. And there's nothing worse than going through a process and then getting like doing step, 11, and then at the end of it going, oh, but before you do that, make sure you do this. No. That should have come first, and then the rest of it needs to come. Order, precision, efficiency is critical for your checklist. They need to be at a glance easy to look at, to find the right piece, and to figure out what comes next. Absolutely critical. Good checklists provide reminders of the most critical and important steps. They don't get into the details of the process, okay? And you want to make sure that everything is in there. You know, something like, well, I'll remember that. No, that's the most important thing to put on the checklist. You always want to make sure you put it on there. So even the things that you say, well, we're professionals, we're highly skilled, we don't need to have that there. Those are critical. Those need to be there. And you need to make sure that they are there in the logical order. And you want to make sure that any of your checklists are, above all, practical. It's not a time for funny fonts or graphic, little comics and all that. They need to be functional, efficient, and clear. That's a good checklist. Bad checklists, okay, are vague and imprecise, right? Too long, okay, too wordy, too much detail. That's not a checklist. This is one of my favorites. I'm going to read this one exactly. They are made by desk jockeys with no awareness of the situation in which they are to be deployed. I got that off of the NASA website because I have a lot of respect for the people at NASA, and they are pretty much the de facto standard for a lot of checklist processes. So that one, I'm going to go through that one again. A bad checklist is made by desk jockeys with no awareness of the situation in which they are to be deployed. That's critical. Good checklists are not developed by people outside the team. They are developed by the people on the team, because those are the ones who are doing the work. I'll just let that sit there for a minute. A bad checklist treats people as tools, dumb tools very often, and try to spell out every single step in granular detail. Again, we've covered that. Clear, concise, efficient. And then a bad checklist would turn off people's brains instead of turning them on. Easily done. So what does all of this mean? Checklists, used right, prepared by the right people, the people who do the work, are recipes for success, okay? They end up with less stress on the job, okay? It's easier to delegate. It's much, much easier to train. It guarantees that you will be consistent, and it greatly improves your efficiency. Are you on board yet? So in case you're curious, what is she talking about? A lot of people think that maybe I'm overblowing how much they're used. So I'm just going to bring up what comes up when you do a search for a NASA pre-flight checklist. Okay, this is only one of their checklists. They're very, very serious about checklists, as they should be. So, you can go and do your own research. You can look for, pilot, checklists. You can look at all kinds of ones for hospitals. If you really need more proof of this, go online and do a search for checklists in hospitals or checklists in healthcare. And you will find a ton of proof of where not having a checklist created problems and where having checklists have greatly improved things. It is definitely the kind of thing that if you haven't done it before, you may not be on board as I'm talking to you about this, but I'm hoping that you will at least give it a try. Pick one thing and try it that way. And remember the difference that, it's not a to-do list, right? There's to-do lists, there's checklists, and there's processes, right? To-do lists are sort of one-off kind of reminders of things you need to do, but not necessarily in any context. Checklists are very specific, right? Checklists are all about the how to do things, right? And then a process is the details for each how on how to complete the task. And then you go back and you check it off. Alrighty. Hopefully that has worked for everybody. Hopefully this has started to ring some bells in your head and you're like, oh, well, maybe we should try that for this, or gee, that would be really useful for that. Just for examples from our own world. Thank you for the hearts, Periscope. I love the hearts. That's so nice. I appreciate that. just a couple of off the cuff, I do have a couple more minutes here. So we use checklists for software requirements. We have them for the business requirements and for the technical requirements. Now, we usually end up combining those, but we always start off by doing the business ones, and then we take the business ones and add to that to turn it into the technical ones. So we have 2 checklists for that, and then we have a checklist for how we combine them together. We use checklists for UAT all the time. Our QA team have multiple checklists that they use to make sure that everything goes the way it needs to be done, and all the things need to be tested. And we have checklists for what what QA, the BAs, and the developers need to do every time QA finds a problem. So, and these have, we've built these over the years. We have expanded on them. We have, we think, improved them, we hope, over the years. It is an ongoing, it's one of the living documents, which you've heard us talk a lot about this year. Checklists are definitely a living document. There's always room for improvement on them. But by having everybody working off of the same checklist, we know without a doubt that, everything is being done to the high standard that we hold ourselves to. And anybody from any team can jump in, see where we are with our checklist, and jump in and help as needed. So that has proved invaluable for us, and so we are sharing that with you. And I keep using the royal we. May or may not be here tonight, but we talked about this beforehand, so she's on board. I'm not doing anything, behind her back here, so this is all good. All right, well, unless you guys have any comments, questions, if you have your own ideas about checklists, I hope that you will let us know. I will give you a second to do that while I remind you that, and I just have to find it. See, it's so much harder to do this alone. Here we go. Okay, so we would like to remind you that we're leaving the survey open till the end of the year, probably after the new year. So if you have literally 2 or 3 minutes, it's just a couple of questions, and then you can, of course, spend more time on it. There's some free tests. Most of them are just check boxes. And so you can let us know what it is you need more information on, you would like help on, which content you found most useful this year. All this information we are culling and we are pulling together so that we can start to map out what we're going to do next year. We have some big plans for next year. We almost need 2 years in next year to get everything done, but we're going to get it all figured out. But this survey is definitely helpful. Thank you to everybody who has completed the survey already. We appreciate you making the effort. We appreciate everybody who has reached out with questions, with suggestions for the show. It means the world to us. We love being able to do this. We love being able to help our people because there's not always support for BAs out there. Let's be honest about it. Most of the time there is, but not always. Everybody understands truly what it is that we do, which is why we started to do this way, because we kept running into people who were so frustrated on other teams. And so we started to build our own little communities locally. And now we've brought it to the internet because, hey, there's a lot of us out there. All right. All right, so I'm going to do one more check here, just make sure we've got all the questions and comments. It's totally fine that you're just talking among yourselves. That's fine too. No worries. All right. So thank you so much from both of us, from all of us. Here, we'll bring up. Okay, the pups say thank you too. Murphy and Tinker have had excellent Christmases. Never fear that Santa Paws was very good to them. And we are so thrilled to have you here, and we look forward to the new year. We hope that you enjoy the holiday, that you have a great New Year's, and we will be back next week. We're not missing a show. We're not missing a beat. And we are looking forward to continuing this journey with all of you. So have a good one. We will talk soon, all right? Let me get the video. Bye.